Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have a technical overview of Veeam's Microsoft 365 backup capabilities. I am Michael Paul. I'm one of the solution engineers within the Veeam Data Cloud Microsoft 365 team. And joining me today is my good friend, Joe Watkins.
And again, I'm one of the solutions engineers on the Veeam Data Cloud for M365 team.
So today we're going to have a quick walkthrough as to what the Veeam Microsoft backup solution currently looks like, the different options available to you, and then we promise this won't be death by PowerPoint. We're actually going to have a demo as well and give you a tour of some of the product functionality available today. So thank you for joining us, and let's get started.
Perfect. So there are many different ways to protect your M365 data with Veeam. Firstly, as you can see here, you have the ability to utilize our backup software, Veeam Backup for M365, where you can self-manage the solution. This includes managing your infrastructure, your storage, the maintenance, and obviously the day-to-day operations for backing up and restoring data. You've also got the ability to protect your data using our backup service, Veeam Data Cloud for M365, which is what we're going to be demonstrating today. With these options, customers do not have the option to manage their infrastructure, networking, storage, and maintenance. That's all done by us. This just leaves the customer the ability to manage their day-to-day operations, so managing the backup configurations, carrying out restore tasks, configuring reporting, and also configuring security on the portal as well, so who can access the platform as well. Then finally, customers also have the ability to utilize a managed backup as a service solution, essentially, from one of our service providers. In this scenario, the customer can rely on one of our service providers to manage all aspects of the solution, including the infrastructure, including the backup configurations and restoration tasks. So there's multiple different ways to take on our solution to be able to protect your M365 environment. And just to give a bit of a recap on these ways here, so you have the ability to use our backup software, which is Veeam Backup for M365. Self-managed, you've also got the ability to choose where you want that data to be held, so you've got multiple different types of storage that can be utilized within the Veeam Backup for M365 solution. You've also got our backup service, Veeam Data Cloud for M365, which is where we will manage that infrastructure for you, and the storage, which that storage is unlimited, and it just leaves you the ability to carry out your day-to-day operations. And then obviously you can utilize one of our VCSPs, one of our service providers, where the solution can be managed for you, making a stress-free day, hopefully. And then over to you, Michael.
Yep. So today we're going to be talking a lot about Veeam Data Cloud for Microsoft 365. It's the newest offering within the market for us here from the Microsoft 365 data protection perspective. So it's built on everything that has driven us to this point. So what is it? Well, it's the same engine underneath as Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. So all the features that you know and love from Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 was baked in. It's proven technology. And on top of that, we have added even more security features. We have added even more ways to help drive that compliance and auditability of the solution. And as Joe's alluded to from the previous slides there, well, everything's included. We are taking on the management of the infrastructure. We're taking on the ability to just present storage and allow you to have those job configurations, and away you go. And one of the things we'll even be looking at is one of the new functionalities available in the market just in the past couple of months, which is Microsoft 365 backup storage. And we're going to talk about that more in a bit. But back over to you, Joe, just to have a look at what is a backup service. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of it a little bit.
So as this slide suggests, everything's included. So we've got you covered. This slide provides an overview of what we manage and what you have control over within the VDC for M365 solution. On the left-hand side of this slide, you can see that Veeam manages all of those core components. That includes the servers, proxies, the storage, the day-to-day operations, including the networking, infrastructure, and maintenance tasks within the platform, and also the automation tasks within the platform, such as updates and patches that need to be applied to the platform. With Veeam managing this, it takes a huge overhead off your internal team and can reduce your costs, as you no longer need to manage and maintain your own backup infrastructure and storage. From a customer perspective, on the right-hand side here, you see you have the ability to manage your backups and carry out restoration tasks. You can configure the correct level of security to the environment through our granular role-based access control. And you can also add in any IP restrictions required, so you can restrict who can access the VDC portal. Finally, you've also got the ability within here from an analytics perspective. You can generate reports within the portal. You can manage your licenses. You can view your user activity, so who's done what within the platform. And you also have the ability to integrate logs with a SIEM solution if you choose.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier about Veeam Data Cloud with Microsoft 365 backup storage. So what is this? This is the newest offering from Microsoft to be able to back up your data. And it works a bit differently to how we've operated previously. To date, we've used the Microsoft Graph API. We've been pulling this data out of the Microsoft 365 tenancy. We've been compressing it, and we've been storing it within some object storage accounts or block storage with VB365 as well. But there's a few differences here that we really should know about. So first of all, this is lightning fast. We're not limited by the Graph API pulling this data out and the number of API calls we can make per day, or any of these kind of traditional bottlenecks that have been associated with backing up Microsoft 365. If you're an infrastructure administrator, then you're normally familiar with the concept of virtual machine backup, where you take these snapshots, we copy the data, we get rid of them. That doesn't exist within the SaaS world the same. We have to use APIs. We back up every single email, every single file individually as an item. And that is where these Graph API calls start to magnify. But things are different with the Microsoft 365 backup storage. So at present, we support Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business. Quick call out there, notice that Microsoft Teams is missing. We're still using the Graph API to protect that instead. So what are we offering? Lightning fast backup. Well, we could be talking up to a couple of terabytes per hour in terms of data recovery speeds. It's industry leading speeds there. No throttling from Microsoft on this one. And it allows you to fit this emergency disaster response button for your organization. You can bulk restore at truly amazing scales. And that we talk about the increased resilience to ransomware. Well, ransomware, it's encrypting data, it's changing data. The ability to roll back to that point in time is dramatic. And Joe, if we could just go on to the next slide, please.
Yep.
So that is kind of out of the box what Microsoft 365 backup storage is. But as you'd expect from a value-added integrator such as Veeam, well, we've added our own layer of functionality on top here. So we've created our own enhanced security access to the Microsoft 365 backup storage. We have all the controls that Joe's kind of talked about previously. So we've got IP access controls. We've got a really comprehensive role-based access control solution as well. We also have the ability to automatically, dynamically discover and update for users within groups to make sure that new users are automatically protected. We've already introduced a very comprehensive auditing solution here for these event logs that we're capturing. And one of the key differentiators as well is that we're actually including the storage for this within our pricing. So it does create a predictable pricing model compared to a cost per gigabyte, for example, that you might come to expect. So with that, back over to you, Joe. Let's have a look at how this all fits together.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are now more ways to protect your data, your M365 data with Veeam Data Cloud. So you'll see from this slide, there are 3 options available. So firstly, Flex, which is our traditional offering, where an organization is provided with a large amount of control around their data. This includes multiple backup configurations for your Exchange, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, and your Teams data. you've got the ability to choose a backup location of your choice, so you can choose where your data is held. You've got the ability to configure retention periods for your data as well. So the default is 7 years. However, if there is a requirement for a lesser period of time or a larger period of time, it's absolutely possible. You've also got the ability to carry out granular restores, as Michael mentioned. So you've got the ability to restore individual items, individual folders within a mailbox, within a OneDrive, etc. But you've also got our new offering, which is Express. This is what it is, utilizing the Microsoft backup storage, and it allows an organization to back up data quickly and restore data at speed following a disaster scenario. So as a prime example for this would be as a DR solution, or even if you need to get data back nice and quickly. The things to point out with Express are, when it comes to backing up your data, all of that data will be held within your own Microsoft tenancy, and backed up data will reside within the same geographic region as the source data. This will obviously ensure data sovereignty. Retention of the data being protected with Express is configured to 1 year, and it is 1 year only. It cannot be increased and decreased as you can with the Flex side of things. And obviously, as Michael alluded to already, is currently unable to protect that team's data. But obviously, this may change with the Express offering in the future when Microsoft add additional enhancements to the platform. The one thing to point out from a team's perspective is, obviously, if you're looking to protect your SharePoint data, as every team has an associated SharePoint, if you were to back up that SharePoint data, you would obviously be able to protect that data. It's just the posts and things within inside that channel that you wouldn't be able to restore. One other thing to point out from an Express perspective, it only allows one backup job per workload. So one job for Exchange, one job for OneDrive, and one job for SharePoint currently. And when it comes to restoration on an Express side of things, you don't have the ability to carry out a granular restore. So you can't restore at individual item level. It will be at object level. So for example, an entire mailbox, and that will go to the original location upon restoration. And then finally, you'll see in green in the middle of the screen there, you've got the option for premium. This is essentially the best of both worlds. So it is utilizing a combination of both Flex and Express. So if you utilize both, you've got the ability to carry out a Flex restoration and backup, as well as carrying an Express backup and restoration as well. All three of these options are available either individually or in a combination, and are all accessible through the same easy to use user interface. So the next thing to do now is just run through a demonstration of the platform. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just for a few moments, so I can get my dashboard up. So bear with me 2 seconds.
And while Joe's doing that, any questions that you might have, please just feel free to fire them into the chat. We're answering them as they come up, and we're happy to talk through the solution more as well. So yeah, keep them coming. It's great to see some of the ones so far.
Okay, so I'm hoping everyone can now see my screen again. So if you haven't seen Veeam Data Cloud for M365, when you log in, you'll be presented with this dashboard screen. This is what it looks like when you first log in. I'm logged in here to my test tenancy. So it's only got some demo data within here. I'm logged in using my own Microsoft credentials, utilizing my own AD, so single sign-on, etc. So I know that it's a seamless authentication into the platform from my Entra ID. And this dashboard screen kind of gives me an at-a-glance overview of, first of all, my backup status. Gives you an overview of when my last backup was completed, the status of that backup, whether it was successful, finished with warnings, has failed, it's still running. I can also see the number of restore points I have across the backups as well. And I can also see the amount of storage being consumed. As mentioned before, storage is unlimited with the solution. There is obviously a fair use policy in place, but it's a very large amount, and it's very unlikely any customer would go above that amount. I can see my backup users here. So I can see how many accounts I have in total, which is 25 within this tenancy. I can see that I'm protecting 25 of those 25s, and none of those accounts are unprotected. And just a pie chart underneath just telling me that yes, I'm 100% protected within my M365 tenancy. I can then see what I've got from a backup retention perspective. As I mentioned, the default is 7 years that we normally configure. This particular tenancy is set to keep, which will essentially keep that data indefinitely. So it can be done for as long as you would like. And within my current tenancy here, I am currently 5 months and 7 days into that retention period. And my oldest retention point, or my earliest recovery point, is on the 18th of April 2024. And underneath it will give a pie chart on where we are to meeting that retention. Obviously, as this has got to keep forever, there is no percentage because obviously I can't meet forever. Final three here just give me a bit more of an insight into my M365 tenancy. So within here, I can see my M365 license information. This is capturing information directly from my M365 tenancy. So I can see that within the last 30 days, I have 17 active licensed M365 users within the platform. And 7 of those 17 active users have been inactive. So they've not logged into the platform for the last 30 days. I've also got the ability to view my inactive accounts. So if I wanted to view those accounts that haven't logged in for the last 30 days, I can view them all here. So there's a possibility there you could look at your Microsoft licensing to say, oh, actually, this person has not been using the platform for a long time, or they've left the organization, and you can potentially claim some of that licensing back. Nice and useful for you to be able to see directly in this platform here. I can then see my VDC licenses. So I have 17 protected accounts here. So we will only charge for the 17 licenses here. So you can see that marries up to the same amount in my M365 license activity. You can see that, yes, 17 are licensed users, and I have 8 which are no license required. So these could be my shared mailboxes, resource group mailboxes, mailboxes that don't consume a license within M365. So again, we don't charge for them, providing they're not licensed within your M365 tenancy. Finally, I get an overview of my M365 storage usage. So this just gives me an overview of how much storage I'm consuming within my M365 tenancy. As I mentioned, this is a demo tenant, so there's not a huge amount of data within here. And I can also see the top 5 storage users within the platform as well. As far as what we protect, we obviously protect your Outlook, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, and your Teams data. If I wanted to carry out a restore, I can either navigate through one of these, or I can navigate through on the left-hand side for one of the applications. Then if I scroll down to the bottom of this page, I can see activity logs of who's done what within the platform. So if, for example, I wanted to keep track of who's done what, and say, for example, I've navigated through to restore an email, an Outlook email, I've then navigated through to a particular folder, previewed an email, and then carried out a restore, all of that activity log would be captured within here as well. All of that information can be exported directly to a CSV file from the following screen, or alternatively, it can be sent directly to a syslog server as well. So you can integrate that with the Veeam solution if you would like as well. I'll touch back on the activity logs a little bit more in a few minutes once I've shown you the restoration process. But if I click to backup policies in the top left-hand corner, you can see that within my tenancy here, I've got multiple different jobs configured. You can see that a lot of them are finishing successfully. Some are finishing with warning. You can see that I've got my MBS policies, which are my express policies, configured within this platform as well. But if, for example, I wanted to navigate through and look through one of these particular jobs and look at the historical logs for that particular job, I can click on the blue text. It will then load up the logs for that particular job underneath. And I can interrogate these logs if I would like to as well. So if I click on View Logs, this will bring out a pop-out window. It will then provide me with a log of that particular job. And within here, I've got the ability to either filter through. So if, for example, I wanted to look for a particular user here, I can filter through and search for that particular user. And I can see that on this particular job, I'm protecting this user's OneDrive and personal SharePoint sites. But I'm also aware that I've got some warnings on this job. Rather than me having to scroll through and find those particular warnings, I can look through my statuses here, click on warning. It will then filter through just for my warnings here. And this will give me, in plain English, what that warning is. And essentially, this is saying that OneDrive was not found for these particular users because they're either not licensed for that or there is no OneDrive for that particular user. It's going to be the same thing for the previous historical jobs as well. And all of these logs can be exported directly to CSV, either from this screen here, or alternatively for a particular job directly on the backup policy screen. And on any of these jobs, as you would expect, I can edit, start, disable, delete, as you would expect. And if I wanted to create a brand new backup job, I can click New Backup Policy in the top right-hand corner. I have the option of choosing between an Express policy, because it is enabled within this platform, or a Flex policy. I'm unable to create a new Express policy for this particular instance because I already have a backup policy for each of the workloads within the platform. But if I were to choose this, it would then give me an option to be able to choose what components I want to back up, and then I can choose what I want to back up from a user perspective, SharePoint sites, and OneDrive perspective as well. But if, for example, I wanted to create a new backup policy and choose a Flex policy here, I can choose Flex policy. I can then provide my policy with a name. So test as an example. I can give it a description if I would like. If I've got multiple different repositories configured within my tenancy, I can choose a particular policy retention that I want. I can then choose what data I want to back up, whether I want to back up one big job to back up the entire tenancy and exclude some items if I would like, or alternatively, can back up the following objects. So I can do this at user level, at group level, and what I want to do for the members of that group, from a SharePoint site perspective, from a Teams perspective, and I've also got the ability to carry out a partial organization backup. So if, for example, I wanted to back up all mailboxes within my M365 tenancy, I could potentially choose all mailboxes here, and then this backup policy would protect all mailboxes. Similarly, if I wanted just to back up a subset of users within the platform, I can click on my M365 users here. This will provide me with a list of the users within my tenancy. I can then choose the users that I want to protect, and you'll see that when I select them, it will automatically look to back up the user's mailbox, archive mailbox, OneDrive, and personal site. I have got the ability within here as well to have the granularity to change what components I want to back up for the users as well. And when I'm ready, I can click OK, and you can see that I've got 3 users selected. Similarly, if, for example, I were doing a partial organization, I've got the ability to exclude items from this backup as well. And then finally, from a scheduling perspective, I can get my policy to start as soon as the job has been created, and I can choose whether I want my job to run daily, which is the default, or I can have my job run periodically, either every 8 or every 4 hours within the platform. I'm not going to click create on this instance, but if I were to click create and I'd ticked this box, it would then appear in my backup policy screen, and I'd be able to see the logs for that running job as well. If I give you an overview of how the restoration process works, I'll just demonstrate, because this is enabled with Flex and Express, so premium licenses are in use within this platform. I can filter through to a particular user here and choose what I want to do, or alternatively, I can filter through. I can choose Emmy as an example. If I were to select Emmy's mailbox, this will load up the mailbox as I would expect to see it within my Outlook, and I can restore at mailbox level. So if I were to select mailbox level here, this will give me a few options. So I have the ability to carry out an express restore, which will carry out a full restore of that entire mailbox. You'll notice that underneath, if I were to proceed with this restore, because it goes back to the original location, it will completely replace the mailbox if it still exists within the platform. And yes, I can use the latest restore point available, or I could potentially use a different point in time if I would like, which would allow me to navigate through previous points in time. Alternatively, if, for example, I wanted to carry out a flex restore, I can carry out a flex restore, and I have some additional options when it comes to carrying out this restore. I can go back to the original location with the standard settings, or I've got the ability to carry out some advanced options here. So only restore changed items, missing items, mark items restored as unread once the restoration is complete. I can also exclude specific items, so whether it be drafts, deleted items, in-place hold items, and litigation hold items within the platform. I can choose to restore to a different user's mailbox and a specific fold within that mailbox if I would like. Again, the same advanced options. I can download this as a PST file for an entire mailbox, or if, for example, you're dealing with a large mailbox, to save your session timing out within the portal, what this will do is it will prepare the file behind the scenes, notify you once it's ready for download, then you'll be able to download this as a PST file from the notification section, which I'll touch on shortly. If I then drill down a little bit further, and I wanted to carry out a restore, and I wanted to navigate through and restore inbox, for example. If I click on restore selected folder here, you'll see that the option to carry out an express restore is now no longer available. As mentioned, an express restore will only allow you to restore at object level. It will not allow you to restore granular, folder level, or item level. But again, same kind of principle here. I can choose original location with additional advanced options, another user's mailbox, download to local computer, or again, download in the background. Similarly, if I wanted to navigate through and restore individual item, I can restore a selected item, or alternatively, multiple items if I would like. You'll also have noticed that I have blue text over the subject line here. If I wanted to preview this email before carrying out a restore, I have the ability to do so. This will then load up the message body, so I can confirm it's definitely the email that I want to carry out a restore on. And once it has loaded, always on a demo. Oh, fantastic. Well, generally, I would be able to load the message body, but obviously on this instance, it's not allowing me to. If we have time later on, I'll see if I can come back to this and try again. But if, for example, I wanted to carry out a restore of this particular item, I can again restore that selected item, choose original location with advanced options, another user's mailbox, local computer, download in the backend, etc. If for this instance I choose original location and carry out a restore, this will then render, and then within a few moments I'll get a message to say my restore has started, and I'll be notified once it's complete. If I then navigate through to my notifications in the top left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner there, I can then view my activity here, and you can see that my restore has completed within a couple of seconds. And I can also navigate through and look at a summary of that restoration and also view the logs of that particular restore task as well. When it comes to navigating through OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams, it's the same principle. So same principle, if I were to choose a particular user, and I'll choose ME again, and I restore that selected OneDrive, again, it will give me the option to carry out that express restore or that flex restore if I would like. I won't go through the complete navigation with you because it's the same principle that you will see. So I can go to original location, another user's OneDrive, local computer, download in the background, etc. I'll navigate through SharePoint and Teams as well, just so you can see the process. And again, same kind of navigation through within the platform. You'll notice at the top of each of these screens, I've got the ability to explore backups from a Flex perspective from a particular point in time as well. So if, for example, I wanted to look at a particular restore point from last Friday, and I wanted to look at this Teams IT here, I can click OK. It will then reload that content as of that particular date, so I can navigate through and restore specific items as well. You've also got an option at the top here to include items deleted by a user as well. So this functionality will essentially roll back through previous backups. So say, for example, a user has come to you and said, oh, I need to restore this file. I know I had it at some point, but I can't tell you when it disappeared. Rather than you having to look through individual restore points, you can enable this functionality, which will essentially roll back through those previous backups. You'll be able to navigate through that content and locate that item, and then obviously carry out a restore rather than you having to delve back in time to try and locate that particular item. Now that I've shown you the restoration process, the one thing that I was going to show you from a DR perspective when it comes to an express restore as well, you'll notice that when I've selected on this top item, I get a list of all the mailboxes that have appeared here. If I want to carry out a restore of multiple items, I can obviously select those mailboxes that I want to restore. I can restore those selected mailboxes. And again, I've got the ability to carry out an express restore for those particular mailboxes, and obviously they will restore back to their original location. Means you can do a nice and easy bulk restore. You have also got the ability to carry out a bulk restore from a flex perspective as well. But if you've got a large amount of data, the express option may be the best option for you. If I then just flick back to the dashboard screen and just navigate through to the activity logs at the bottom again, you can see that everything that I've done within the platform here has been captured. So you can see I navigated through Outlook. I then viewed the email body, which I did obviously have a few issues with. I then carried out a restore of that item from Emmy's mailbox. I then navigated through OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. I then reloaded the Teams content from a particular point in time from a week ago. I then also included items deleted by user, and then obviously I navigated through Outlook again just to show you that bulk restore capability as well. If I then navigate through to the settings section in the bottom left-hand corner, so user access to the VDC platform is based on role-based access control. So there is granular role-based access control built into the platform here. I am an administrator within the platform, so I can do everything within here. But you can have as many roles as you want. So say, for example, you've got multiple different departments that you want to give different levels of access, or you've got certain teams that you want to be able to access a particular group's data. So you can restore from their Outlook and OneDrive data, for example. You wanted to give different levels of support access to preview emails. You might want to give first line the ability to restore to original location, but not restore to another location. You may then want to give your second line support the ability to restore to another location, but not give the ability to download to their local computer, for example. You then might want to give your third line support the ability to restore back to original location, restore to another user's location, or potentially download in the background as well. So there's a lot of granularity within here as well. If, for example, I wanted to create a new role, really straightforward, I can click Add New Role in the top right-hand corner. I can either create a role from some pre-canned templates that we have within the platform, or alternatively, I can create a custom role where I can give the role a name. I can give the user allocated to this role the ability to browse and restore from a SharePoint perspective, from a Teams perspective, from a OneDrive perspective, from an Outlook perspective. I can give them the ability to view reports for a mailbox protection, user protection, monthly backup report perspective as well. You can give the users the ability to view the backup policies, be able to manage those backup policies, to be able to actually edit them, to be able to, from an Outlook perspective, be able to preview emails, restore emails to a different user's mailbox, give the option to download to their local computer or download in the background, give access to all of the Outlook data across the entire tenancy, or alternatively, if, for example, you've got a particular department that you want to be able to access certain data, if you wanted to give access to a certain group, I can select a particular group here. So, for example, I wanted to add this IT team. When a user logs in, they would only be able to see the content of Outlook for that particular group. Similarly, you may have some VIPs within the organization that say, I don't want anyone touching my Outlook data because there's sensitive information in there. And if they have the ability to restore, I don't want anything going astray anywhere. Again, if that VIP user is allocated to a particular group, you can potentially give the user allocated this role the ability to have access to all the data except the data for a particular group as well. So same principle. Here, I can choose a particular group, and then when a user logs in allocated to this role, they wouldn't be able to see the Outlook content for that particular users within that group. From a OneDrive perspective, same kind of principle here. So be able to restore to another user's OneDrive, download to local or download in the background, give access to the entire tenancy for a particular group or groups, or again, if you've got VIP users that say, we don't want anyone touching it, again, you can allocate out that way as well. From a SharePoint perspective, you can give the ability to restore to another location, download to local, download in the background again, give access to all of the SharePoint data across the entire tenancy, or just for a subset of sites if you would like as well. And then the final ones under this other section are more admin tasks within the platform. So being able to manage the users and manage the roles, being able to manage the subscriptions, so the licensing side of things, be able to view the user activity, so those audit logs I showed you on the dashboard screen, be able to receive notifications specific to the user, be able to view the system settings, which I'll touch on in a few moments, be able to access the Veeam Data Cloud support, so the support section in the bottom left-hand corner, and also be able to view the M365 license information, so those widgets you saw on that dashboard screen as well. So you may not want to advertise what you've got within your M365 tenancy. Once you have configured a role here, you can obviously click OK, and then it would appear within this list here. And once you have added a role as well, you do also have the ability to amend permissions on the fly as well. So if you wanted to change what permissions a particular role has, you can do so. Just click Save once done, and then obviously it will do so. I won't for this instance because other people are using this platform. When it comes to adding an admin user to the platform as well, so you can easily just add a user individually, so email address, first name and last name. You can send them a welcome email and toggle the role you want them to be associated with. Or potentially you could upload a file, which is a CSV, requiring first name, last name, and email address. Again, you can send a welcome email to the users and obviously toggle the role you want those users to be allocated to. If I just touch on the system side of things here, so as standard, we do not back up the posts within your Teams channels. The reason for this is due to the fact that Microsoft made a change to the Teams export API at the beginning of last year, where they actually charge you directly through your Microsoft billing to transact that data. So as standard, we've not enabled that functionality or enabled that permission on our side, but it can be enabled directly through the platform here. If you were to enable that through here, you can go directly through. There is a knowledge base article just giving you an overview of the changes that Microsoft made and the charge that Microsoft obviously charged you. And because we have no control, we don't enable it. You can then tick this box, go through the next screen, and then it will ask you to authorize the permissions, which will essentially amend the permissions on the app registration you have within your Microsoft Azure landscape. If, for example, your app registration within your tenancy had been removed or someone had amended permissions, you can reauthorize Veeam Data Cloud directly through the platform here as well. So if I were to click reauthorize, it would give me an authorization token. It would give me a Microsoft page. You would then need to log in with a Microsoft Global Admin to be able to reauthorize onto the Veeam Data Cloud platform. And then obviously once you've done so, you can either reauthorize an existing app registration if you have one, or potentially create a brand new app registration if needed. Similarly, if, for example, you've got a large amount of SharePoint data to ingest when you onboard onto the solution and you needed an additional app registration to assist with that performance, there is the ability to add in an additional app registration to the platform. And again, same kind of principle, it will give you an authorization token, the Microsoft device login page, which will essentially allow you to add an additional app registration to your platform as well. If I just touch on the backup repositories tab, so this tab isn't available as standard, but it can be enabled if you want to get an overview, if you've got multiple different repositories configured within the platform. Within here, you can edit your retention if you would like. You can add in additional repositories if you would like as well. Generally, we wouldn't look to enable the edit policy for the retention within the platform. We would always generally advise against it anyway, due to the fact that if, for example, a malicious actor gained access to your credentials, they could potentially get access to the Veeam Data Cloud portal with your Enter ID credentials. They could potentially go in here and change your retention period down to 1 day if they would like, which will obviously mean that restoration from a backup would be impossible. So as standard, we don't generally enable this, but we leave it on at a demonstration perspective so you can see how this works. If I just touch on the access tab here, there is the ability within the VDC portal to enable self-service, so all users within inside your domain will be able to carry out a restore of their own Outlook and OneDrive data. A lot of organizations don't like this functionality because they think that a user is going to cause a lot of problems. One thing to point out, if you do enable this functionality, yes, a user would be able to restore content from their Outlook and OneDrive. However, they wouldn't be able to restore their entire OneDrive, for example, or their entire mailbox. It doesn't give that functionality, but if they wanted to restore individual items because they'd removed something, there is that functionality if you would like to do so. As mentioned earlier on in the presentation, there is the ability to restrict access to the Veeam Data Cloud portal from specific IP ranges. So if, for example, you wanted to restrict access to the portal from a head office, for example, you can add in an IP range here, from and to IP address, and then obviously users would only be able to log in from that particular location. And as mentioned earlier on this demonstration as well, there is also the ability to add in a syslog server if you have one internally, where you can add in a syslog server, port number, protocol type, so you can send the activity logs of who's done what within the platform directly to that, which you can then integrate with a Veeam solution if you would like as well. The final thing I will just touch on before we go back over to Michael in a moment is the organization details. This just gives an overview of who you are as an organization. So organization name, telephone number, address details, primary contact, billing contact. You've also got the ability to configure notifications within here as well. So say, for example, I wanted to add my email address, I can configure notifications for backup completions, backup failures, a monthly report of backup jobs, any licensing changes within the platform. You can also get notifications of restore activities within the platform as well. You'll also see at the bottom of the screen, you can also add in webhooks to a Teams channel, which will allow you to get notifications of backup completions and backup failures directly to that Teams channel. Just means that you don't have to wait for an email to come through. You can get it directly into a channel from there as well. Hopefully it's been a useful demonstration for you. And what I'll do is I'll stop sharing my screen and then I'll reshare on the presentation.
And thank you everyone for all the questions that have been coming through. You've certainly been keeping busy there, typing back to everyone. We'll keep answering those, so please keep them coming in.
And right, hopefully you can see the screen again.
Yes, we can see that. So thank you for going through the demo, Joe. It's really insightful. It's a powerful tool, and it's great that everyone here has had a chance to see it. There's been a huge amount of questions coming through. I'll just quickly touch on some of the kind of recurring ones while we've got time. So, there's been questions around the dashboard access, and does that cost money? Well, no, it doesn't. So if, for example, you've got dedicated admin accounts, maybe global admins, exchange admins, etc., there's no charge for them to access the dashboard. Effectively, as long as you have a VDC tenancy, we're not charging users to access. So even if you have an exchange administrator, they don't have a mailbox, you don't need to license them within Veeam Data Cloud to access this dashboard. Same with role-based access controls. There's no realistic upper limit to the number of roles you can have and the controls available there. Aside from that, some of the other questions, is the storage provided? Do we need to bring our own storage? The storage is provided by Azure. That is something that we provide as part and parcel of the service there. And again, we mentioned earlier in the presentation that there's unlimited storage. We license this per user. There's been a few questions coming through around commercial specifically, so please reach out to your reseller or Veeam partner for any of that costing, and we can make that available to you. With regards to questions around functionality as well, speak to your partner, speak to your Veeam representative to talk about roadmap. And it's always great to talk about what's up and coming, and also to get feedback from yourselves, because we're developing this. It's 2 weekly sprints, so we're frequently delivering updates here. So we always want to make sure that we live up to being the market leading #1 here, and we want to carry on doing that. We want to carry on having you all along the journey with us. So kind of next things here, just a few QR codes. As much as I'm sure some security people here might be like, oh, let's not scan QR codes. Well, we've put the URL there as well. If you want to have a look at an interactive walkthrough of the dashboard, here you go, QR codes on the screen there. We'll leave that for a few more moments just for people to grab a picture of that or a screenshot, and then we'll move on to a couple other QR codes we've got as well. Again, more questions that have been coming through around backing up Teams, SharePoint. Hopefully some of this has been answered within the demo. But again, speak to your Veeam partner, speak to your reseller there. And if you wanted to have more of a specific demo to go through your requirements and talk about that, Joe and I, we actually spend most of our days sitting down with customers such as yourselves watching this here and talking about the solution and helping tailor that for, your specific needs and making sure that it is the right fit for you. So yeah, please reach out, and odds are you'll be talking to one of us in the coming days or weeks. So Joe, if you're happy to just go on to the next slide there for us. So talking about, requesting demos, contacting sales, etc. Well, here you go. Here's the next QR code. Request a demo. Again, we're happy to go through this. We're happy to answer those specific questions. So we'll leave that up for a few moments there, just for more questions to be asked and answered. And then I'd say just please keep them coming in. So just having a look here if there's any more that.
Yeah. Apologies. Do you need me to go to another slide? Because I'm sorry, I was answering.
Yeah, if you're happy to just go through the next slide for us as well now. So yeah, we do have on our website. So again, a final QR code there. I'm just talking about all of the kind of the key breakdown between Flex and Express and Premium, as to what workloads we might support, backup frequencies, all that kind of information. So we've got a lot of that on the website as well. And again, if you still have questions at the end of that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So we are coming towards the end of the session here. We're going to stay on. We're going to keep answering some questions as well. Joe, if you're happy to go on to the kind of final slide from us here. So I don't know whether yourselves are, attending every Veeam or you've never even kind of seen any of these events that we conduct before, but beginning of October, we've got our Veeam Data Resiliency Summit. So we've got an all-star cast. So we've got Anand, our CEO. We've got Anton Gustav. If you're ever a member of the R&D forums, you might remember the word from Gustav emails over the years. He's our Chief Product Officer. We've got Krista from the Futurum Group. We've got Chad from the Chertoff Group, and we've got Mikhail Goldstein as well from Palo Alto Networks. We've got an amazing group of people here. Again, QR code on the screen there to register. Some of the things that we're actually going to be going through at that Resiliency Summit, we're going to be talking about some of the latest product updates. We're always pushing out these releases. So we're going to tell you about what's the latest and greatest from Veeam. We're going to talk about one of the key tenets of Veeam, what we talk about data freedom. We want you to be our customer because you love our tools and they meet your needs. We don't want to hold your data hostage. So hence a key tenet of our philosophy is data freedom. So you'll hear about that. You hear about data resiliency playbooks. You'll hear about really what the shared purposes are around. Again, we're talking Microsoft 365. One of the key questions that was asked as well was, well, Microsoft 365, surely Microsoft are looking after it. And well, no, shared responsibility model is that Microsoft will provide that Microsoft 365 service, and you are always responsible for your data. Hence, Veeam have decided to create this backup solution for Microsoft 365 to help you meet all of your compliance, your regulatory needs there. So that's all of it from the slides. So look, thank you everyone for attending here. We're going to stay on for a bit to carry on answering questions. Apologies if we don't get to your question. It's not that the question wasn't important or anything. It was purely that there's been a lot of questions coming through here. And if we don't get to it, then please reach out to your Veeam account manager, to your partner, and we will field the questions that way. Okay.
Yeah, similarly, I've seen some questions regarding can we demonstrate certain things on this webinar now. Unfortunately, not at this moment due to time constraints. But at the same time, again, if you reach out to your account manager when it comes to a demonstration, if there's certain things that you want to focus on, we can obviously make sure that we cater demonstrations to you to meet your requirements.
Another key question that's come through as well around, and we've kind of talked about this, is, can you have just Flex, can you have just Express as well as Premium? Well, we have a mixed licensing model. You don't need to license Premium for all of your users. You don't need to license Express for all of your users or Flex for all of your users. You can mix and match, and you don't have to protect the entire organization if you have users that aren't generating data you need to protect, for example, then that is fine as well. You can scale between all of our different license models. If you wanted to do a subset on Premium and the majority on Flex or Express, that is fully supported as well. And another one that's come through here. So if you have Premium, do you have to pay for the native Microsoft 365 backup used for Express? Well, we include that within our license, and we actually keep the storage within our license as well for you there. So again, no bill shock.
We've also had another question here with regards to coverage for Entra ID or Power Apps, Power BI, etc. So Entra ID is on the roadmap. As far as specifics on release dates, there is currently testing within our VBR solution being carried out at the moment to protect Enter ID, which in turn will be introduced into the Veeam Data Cloud platform, which I believe is hopeful for the beginning of 2025. Obviously, I'm not aware of that being a specific date as of yet, so more information will be provided when available. But as far as Power Apps and Power BI, obviously from an M365 perspective, they're not part of that same suite, so it would be a different application there. And currently, no, we do not protect those.
So another question that came through that I think is worth talking about, they asked if we could demo the self-service restore from a user perspective. Now, obviously, we've wrapped the demo section there, but just to talk about that as well. So again, this role-based access control, it's very, very important as part of the product. So if a user wants to access the self-service portal, they go to the same URL, and all they then see on the left-hand side is the ability to restore for Outlook or OneDrive, because that is considered user data. And when they click on that, they will only see their own user, and they can only restore that data back to its original location there effectively. So it helps prevent those data leakage scenarios that we want to protect ourselves against.
Right, so what we'll do is Michael and I will continue going through these questions, but yeah, hopefully it's been a very insightful session for you, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks all.